because the LED doesn't have a whole lot of extra to give us on that. So bend your wire in a little J pattern so you can get around that black chip there. Place it so that it's kind of leaning against the resistor. Once it's on, you'll kind of see that little ball of solder flow. Once that's the case, these wires, you want to be careful when routing them. You don't push too hard on it, but moving it around like this, if it stays connected to the LED, you know you got a good solder on there. So I'm going to route it in a loop here and tack it here. Tack it right at the diode and right at the LED and right over here. Just below the LED. We don't want to block the light, but you want it to be right there, right next to it, and you don't want it sticking up too high. It'll interfere with your buttons, which are right next to it as well. Alright, so we are then ready to finish the connection to the resistor. Your best bet here is to get those wires right next to each other. That one dropped right into place. Typically you gotta bend it around, but if they're touching each other, it's a real easy solder. And then this resistor here needs to be glued down nice and close to the board, but you don't want the metal wire really touching the board, so we're going to tack it into place right on the resistor. I might as well go ahead and tack this here and here. I tack the ends of all wires, so I'm just next to the solder joint. You don't want to be on the solder joint too much. These aren't bad, but if you go on the solder joint at the sync button or something and then you need to access that for repair, it will be quite difficult. Alright, now our sync button. Get some solder on our wire. The sync button does not go easy. Probably the hardest connection. A little solder on the wire will make it all that more easier, and I think I may have too short a wire here. Let's just check. Yeah, that should reach. Alright, now ball up your motors and set yourself like that. So you can grab hold of it and basically hold that wire against your center pin on your sync button. And if you had enough solder on there, it should grab hold. Make sure you don't have a short between the two pins. So I can pretty much see that that's not touching, but it's very close. Then brace your piece while you bend this back and bend it down so that it runs right straight across this connector section. Shoot a load right there and right on your sync button or right next to it. That glue there you might not want to put on until after you test it, just in case we had a bad connection there, but I'm pretty sure we were alright. Have those every now and then. Now we are going to run across the button area. Most people do not do that, but if you do it right, it's not a big deal. You have a rubber pad laying on that, which will not wear through there under normal circumstances. The only thing is you want a good solid glue connection here and there. Your rubber pad will hold you down in place. And make sure you're clear of the button areas. This button and that button, you want to basically split the difference. Get it right through the middle. It beats wrapping all the way around and having all that much extra wire on there, willing to cause you problems. Now this goes to pin 3. If you tack it with glue as you go, makes it a heck of a lot easier when you're soldering. You can pull a little bit on the wire without worrying about it rubbing off on you. You know, that one had a good set of solder, but didn't want to keep a hold. Always good to just push a little bit on your wires, because sometimes if they have a cold connection, they will just make a little crack and come right off. They're on there pretty good, so we're alright with that. Usually if you bend them into a nice gluing position, that it'll come off then. If it's going to come off, and then once you glue it, it's pretty solid. Now we're going to do the faraway trigger, the left trigger first. Left trigger is one of your trickier runs. There's a number of ways. I usually wire it straight across, but for this instructional video, we will run opposite away from the chip, so that you guys have less trouble steering clear of the button areas, because that's where your problems come up. So we're going to run away from it and then loop back, bend the wire into shape so that basically it looks like the board and follows the outside of the board about 1/8 of an inch in. And then you're basically gluing your way around. Little glue as you go. You'll see later when I put the case on, it puts a little bit of pressure in these areas, and the case almost holds our kits together. And that's a good thing. You want the natural size of the case to be in your favor, not working against you. Here we're going to tack it here a couple times. This one's rising, so we're going to hold it down. And the glue's hot, it wants to stick on everything. Alright, so we got that wire pretty much in place. Now we are going to bend it to our position, which is heading to the pin 6, which is across the chip. Cut it to length, strip it, and solder it up. Only bad controller we've ever had, and we haven't gotten it back in yet, but we got a call, and the other wire just came up. Always good to have a little extra solder on there. We had a trigger wire come off, I believe, based on the way they're describing it. So we may get our first bad one back, needing to have the trigger rewired. We do glue these, but you can have a bad solder joint, and that's your biggest killer. Alright, so now we're going to wire our other trigger. We have had good success with the lifespan of the controller. Even the first controllers are still out there. No complaints so far, so this is a pretty solid way to wire it. Alright, so that was our left trigger. Now we're doing the right trigger. And that will be it. Alright, so everything's pretty much wired. Got our left trigger coming down, pin 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Pin 8 loops over to pin 4, goes to ground. Our hot wire goes from our hot connection to pin 1, pin 2, 100 ohm resistor to our diode, bottom side of the diode, or the LED. Sync button to pin 3, pin 4, again our ground, pin 6 to our left button, pin 7 to our right button, and everybody's on board. Now, that is it. Now we have all our lines glued down, so what we're going to do is glue our chip. I hold the gun right pretty much against the chip wires and shoot it into the ball of wires. And that's about it. Just get some across the pins. We didn't glue this trigger down, might as well tack that down while we're at it. Everything else is glued. Let that dry a little bit. Can of compressed air will dry you off rather fast. You can even turn it upside down and shoot liquid oxygen on there, or the liquid form, and you'll dry it very, very fast. Now, take our cover, holding it like this, and you can tell I normally do this with the buttons on because I almost forgot to put them back on. And these buttons look a little loose, so I'm going to grab some new buttons. Grab some new sticks. You never know, some of these new controllers guys buy and swap out the parts. So keep everything new. And put that guy back together. Way you can tell if you're good, you wiggle the controllers, and if it drops in there, and these 3 points come up flush with the board, you're good. Your sync button, right below your sync button, you should be tight. That little indicator right there should be tight against your button, not hanging down. If it hangs down, most likely your board pushed the button in, and it won't make a good sync connection. With that being on there, your battery terminals, you slide this up to hit your battery terminals on an angle.